Hi everyone, welcome to the course. So today we will see one example of function, okay, that how function returns promise, and in that way we are going to use promises to do one task with an example, okay, and after that we are going to learn promise chaining. So let's see that example first. So how is that example? Let's take, there is a student, right? The student has given some is being given with some task, okay, and now that student has to complete that homework, okay. So there are two possibilities again: either this task will be done or it will not be completed. So we have to create that. So let's create a function to see that how you can create that thing. So function complete task, okay. So what we are going to do is, okay, so this function is going to return a promise. So how you will return a promise? Exactly like you were storing over here in a variable, now you have to put this thing exactly same in a function. So how you will do that? Return new promise. So promise will take resolve and reject, right? So in this, what I want is, let, okay, instead of putting over here task done, pass in argument over here, task done, okay. So if task is done means the task is completed, that means the promise is resolved, okay. So what you will do, you will say resolve, you will call resolve and you will say task is completed, done. Now if task is not completed, reject case will get executed. So we will say reject, task is not completed. Or let's say console.log task is in progress. Okay, task is in progress means the initial state when the person is doing the task, and once the task is completed or not, it will be decided at this particular time. Now how will you use then and catch? You have to call this method, call this function. How you will call is complete task, and as you know that you are taking an argument or parameter over here, so you need to pass as true or false here. So now after that you will use then, and you know that your then gives a message when resolves get executed, right? So what you will do, you will say console.log message over here dot, else the task will not get completed. If not, then it will go and catch will catch the error, okay. And then your finally will get executed, the task is over. Now what will happen? Initially it's true, right? So this true will get here and it will firstly print, oh, this task is in progress. Let's see, task is in progress, right? Is doing the task. Now this true value will go, which is true, if task done, which is done, so it will execute task is completed, right? So task is completed, and now you know that the promise, whether it is resolved or reject, finally is always going to execute, just to give the confirmation that the promise has completed its process. Promise is fulfilled. Okay. Now the next is If I'll pass over here false, so task is not completed. Now you can do one more thing over here. That is, instead of putting directly if and else, you want to execute the task with asynchronous. So put set time out, and in this particular thing you can put this if and else, and you can pass the time, let's suppose 2 seconds. Okay, and now let's see, now it will take 2 seconds, and after 2 seconds it will decide this 2 seconds was taken to do the task. Okay, that when the task was in progress, right, it will take some time to complete the task, and after that the time is over. Like, we have given 2 seconds to complete the task. If in 2 seconds task got completed, it will resolve the promise. If not, it will reject the promise. Okay, so let's say here it is true. Now task is completed, right? So it will get executed after 2 seconds. See, done. So this is how your promises work with functions. Now let's understand promise chaining. How promise chaining works. Let's suppose, now promise chaining means there is multiple tasks to do, right? So let's do that. Create a function whose name is task1. Okay, and in this, let's suppose what you are going to do is, let's just put this method, and inside it you are going to create a return a new promise, or just do one thing, write promise dot result, task is completed. You can even return promise directly like this when you know that the promise is executed. Okay, task 1 is completed. Now same you have to use for task 2. Task 2 task 2 is completed, and then we'll go with task 3. Now we have 2 tasks, and you know that when first will be completed, second will be completed, and third will be completed. Firstly, first task will be completed, then only second has to execute. If second is done, then third promise will get resolved. So now see how it will work. Firstly, call this task 1 method. Now what we want is, and then message. See, I will explain you what is happening over here. Close this. Okay, so what will happen, I am calling this particular method which is returning me promise that the task 1 is completed whenever it will be completed. So to print the message we are using then, okay, when it is resolved. Now once this task is completed, that means first task is completed, this promise is resolved, then I want second to get executed. Okay, so after that the second is called, again I want, then message, and exactly same way it will be done. Now you know why I have written all this thing. Right now we don't need this, remove this. Okay, so firstly, if task 1 is completed, now let's see this. Okay, task 3 is 1 2 3. This got printed in sequence because there is a dependency. My first task will be completed first, then only second can be completed, and if second is completed, then third. Okay, so as soon as my first promise is resolved, I want the second task to be executed. Okay, and once my second task is executed, I want my third task to get executed. So in this also there is a fallback. Can you just see that there is a dependency of the task? So this is called promise chaining. What happens? There are only three method, right? Three method, and there is three methods dependency, which is taking this much of time. Now let's assume when there are n number of tasks, it will create a pyramid like structure which will be difficult to handle. For this thing, we use async await, which we will be learning in the next lecture. Okay, for the time being, you guys practice your promises concept, and I hope you have understood this topic well. Thank you so much, everyone.